This podcast and every podcast is brought to you by Claypot. Claypot is a Cantonese-styled restaurant located at 58 St. Mark's Place. It is now currently on Grubhub and Seamless. Go check that bitch out for some really good, surprise, Claypot cooking. You can get your fair share of pork belly and eel, and I mean, there's also appetite. Like, it's amazing time. Great time. And if you are one of those people who doesn't eat anything with a face, like a vegan or vegetarian, that's cool too. They also have option of veggies. So have at it. This podcast is actually with a very good close friend of mine who I met in physics, actually. And for whatever reason, I just started talking to her and she just started talking back at me, and everyone thought we were like best friends forever, and we're like, nah. I just met this kid now. So, I mean, great conversation. But we're also actually joined by my roommate, Josh. And the three of us kind of discuss the difference between objective truth and subjective truth, as well as like just practices of mindfulness. We talk about meditation. We talk about some neuroscience. And it's a really interesting collaboration between, I guess, Josh, who comes obviously from like a theater background, and Gianna, who comes from a neuroscience background. And I love that. I love that we can have a conversation about some deep metaphysical kind of underlying thing that spans across all different kinds of fields. So this one's kind of heavy. This one's kind of a doozy, but definitely one of my favorite conversations. And I hope you definitely get some utility out of this.
When I'm talking about something I'm super passionate about.
It's the best.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are you passionate about?
That's a loaded question.
Yeah, well.
I'm passionate about making others feel good about themselves, because I've experienced that, and I think going through life without insecurities, or with minimal insecurities, and feeling good about yourself and understanding yourself is the most important thing, because it helps you with everything else. So like, I think I'm most passionate about helping people realize their full potential and not feeling bad about themselves, because that affects each decision that they make and each perception that they have about other people. So.
Okay, well, that's beautiful. I love it.
Self-empowerment.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's awesome.
So that's what I want to do with my life, but I don't know where to start. That's why I literally have like 5 jobs right now, because I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with my life.
Yeah.
And how to start.
Well, no, I get that, because it's like, you know what you abstractly want to do, but it's really difficult to find out if like you just said, you have 5 jobs, so it's like, it's difficult to find the right medium where you feel like, yeah, this is like the most optimal way that I can affect the most change.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's why like it's pretty frequent for people our age to like switch jobs a lot, because we're trying to figure that out. And that's I personally thought that was a huge disservice, that like a lot of jobs exist out there that we don't even know they exist, you know? And it's kind of just like, oh, what school are you in? Oh, I'm in the science school, and then I'm gonna do science things for the rest of my life. But like, you don't know that, oh, I studied in physics, I can become a patent lawyer. Like,
right.
It's, yeah, so I definitely feel...
Yeah, and I think that studying neuroscience... I can say this, right?
Casual drop, yeah. Yeah.
Studying neuroscience, they didn't really prepare me for the opportunities that I could have. All they really talked about was like research and academia, and that's all you can get into with your degree, basically.
I felt it very strongly. It was either, are you pre-med? No. Are you going to do research?
Right, and I wasn't
no.
pre-med.
Yeah, exactly.
And I wanted to do research, but I couldn't find, like, I didn't know what I wanted to do research on. Like, neuroscience is a very general term. Like, you can go into something super, super specific with that, but it's just like all I knew about was research, and I didn't even think that that wasn't a specific term. Like research is super general. Like you can literally do anything with that. But they made it seem like such a small world, and it like confused me. So I like didn't know where to go.
Yeah.
And so I kind of just took the first job that I got.
But do you know if you still want to stay within the realm of like neuroscience at all, or?
I'm like really interested in meditation and its effects on the brain. So, or like pretty much any alternative type of medicine, like holistic, and its effects on the body and mind and brain and things like that. So I want to stay within science, but also kind of connect the alternative world with the Western medical world.
Yeah.
Yes. And kind of show people the potential of the self.
Okay, so then do you think... Okay, this is going to be really abstract. But do you think that, like, alternative medicine is only useful if it's, like, nested in science? Or do you think there's also,
What
like...
do you mean by nested in science?
Like, it can be proven, like, 100% of the time to...
Too.
Like
watching this movie will help your soul.
Not necessarily that.
Cannot be proved by science, right?
It's difficult because sometimes, like, there's placebo effect, right? Which is, like, a real phenomenon. It's, like, 60,
that could be the strongest
Yeah,
medicine, yeah.
But, like, there's no science-based fact why that works.
Basically the medicine of the mind. Like, that's your mind.
Yeah,
okay, so...
See, that's what I did neuroscience for.
I'll tell you a story. During my first internship, I studied... memory circuits in the brain in New York, which was like really cool stuff. But I read a book because one of my mentor there was like, read this book. It's awesome. It's really cool. It was called Phantoms of the Brain. And
do you know who it was by?
Yeah, it was by Dr. Ramachandran.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, so there's this book, and it basically goes through different case studies of this doctor, and he would treat patients who had mysterious illnesses or, things of their brain. I don't know how to explain it, but there's a couple chapters on, like, phantom limb syndrome and phantom pregnancy. I don't know if you've heard about that.
Do you know what that?
No, phantom pregnancy? So is that when someone gets pregnant without having...
Kind of. So basically it's when a woman believes that she's pregnant, and she gets all of, like, the signs of pregnancy, the hormonal pregnancy.
Oh, wow.
I'm sorry, the hormones that are released during pregnancy would be released in her body during that time. Like, she would start producing milk. Her stomach would get big.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
But there would be no baby inside of her. She wouldn't be pregnant.
That's crazy.
And it would be all because... It could be for a number of different reasons, but... Mainly, it was because a woman really wanted to become pregnant. And, like, she set her mind to that. And she was like, I'm going to become pregnant. This is going to happen for me. And basically, it was the power of her mind that did all of that. And if, like, the mind could be that powerful to make somebody believe that they're pregnant and release those hormones and, like, have all of the signs of pregnancy except that there's nothing growing inside of you. If your mind could be that powerful, imagine if you can have control over that. And just, like, have that power over your body. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, connection to the body, connection to... Well, it's the mind. I feel like that's the mind-body spirit thing that is, like, so core to the fundamental of human existence that a lot of the time in this digital age we have the danger of moving away from.
Mm-hmm.
Like, truly becoming, a visual, informational processing... I don't know.
Yeah. So that's how I got into meditation. Because I realized that, like, we all have that potential. Like, we all have a mind. That's what makes us human. We all have this consciousness. It's just, we have to unlock that potential. It's not going to be there. So, like, you have to find a way to get to it, basically. And with all these distractions, like technology, or, anything else that's distracting you in your life, you can't really put the time in to become aware of that. and so you can't fully like unlock that potential.
But I think anyone can, right? I think the difference is...
I think we all have that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what and I think of it, and I guess it is really, each person's journey is different to how they get to that. But my relation to my, I guess, physical being, and I'm obviously not a being at full potential, because then I'd probably have a third eye and I would be meditating and floating. But I think my relation to that is really in the noticing. It's not about like not about necessarily chipping away at it, but it's a practice of awareness, of just like reminding myself that I have, a body, and I have breath.
Sure, and I think those are
connection to that is really important.
Yeah, I think those are the steps that are necessary to take to get there.
Yeah, it's like
it's all about awareness. It's
practicing reconnecting to the self.
Sure. Yeah.
Have you ever heard of Reiki?
Mhm.
Yeah.
My cousin
It's amazing.
does that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never had it done, but I've heard about it. I actually really want to try acupuncture.
Yeah?
I know it's not like a spiritual thing.
No,
or like
it's not too big of a deal.
becoming aware of it, but yeah, I don't know. It just seems really cool.
Yeah, it does.
I feel like you can just get into like a really deep, relaxed response, and I don't know. Yeah.
But okay, so you've done float therapy or like float tanks, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I work at a float center.
Ooh.
It's one of my jobs.
Because I've yet to try it, and I really want to.
I know, I've been telling you to come.
But like, what is it like?
It is... I don't want to like give away too much, because when I first started, I did a ton of research on it, and I had all these expectations, and then I got into a float tank, and I didn't have this like profound experience that people talk about, because I was thinking way too much about it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is gonna happen, it's gonna be awesome, and I like couldn't calm my mind down. And once I was starting to get a little relaxed, I would get too excited, because I was like, it's happening, like I'm getting into that float state. It's gonna be awesome. So for like my first couple floats, it didn't really do anything for me, but I'll explain like the process of it. So basically, a float tank is, people call it like sensory deprivation, but my coworker was like, I don't like to say that, because people get kind of freaked out by that phrase, sensory deprivation. People think it's like a scary thing.
Really? Because that's like what attracted me. I was like, that sounds dope.
Well, some people get scared by it. They're like, oh my God, you're gonna
take my senses away.
Yeah. So my coworker kind of termed it as sensory relief. Sensory
I like
relief,
that.
not sensory deprivation. So basically, you go into this tank, and some have lights inside and some don't, and you can turn the lights off on the ones that do have lights. And it's basically filled with 11 inches of water that have 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt in the water. So you automatically float when you lie down. So it's not like the ocean, like, cause like I can't float in the ocean for some reason. I just have like such difficulty floating in like pools, or I don't know why, but
You should go to the Dead Sea.
I've heard.
Yeah.
I've heard. So I think that float tanks are kind of similar to that. So like you automatically float, you're super buoyant. You're in this dark tank. The water temperature matches your skin temperature, so you don't feel it. You can't see anything, you can't smell anything, you can't feel anything. You're completely deprived of your senses.
Relieved.
Relieved of your senses for a time being. And basically what's supposed to happen is, after about like 25-30 minutes, your brain starts to settle into the tank, and you can get what's called a float state, which is basically your brain going into this relaxed response. So instead of being in this fight or flight mode that we're in pretty much all day long in today's society, you take the time to calm your brain down and like give it the opportunity to become aware of yourself or aware of your surroundings. And because there's nothing there, it's like kind of difficult to become aware of yourself, because you can't even feel anything, right? So, yeah, that's like the whole, experience of it. But essentially, when you're in that float state, it's kind of like being in like a really light sleep, but being fully aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I would describe it, I think. And there's research that's being done on it, and they've been saying that a few times in a float tank can be similar to years of meditation, because your brain, in a float state, your brain releases theta waves, or it can release theta waves, which are seen in like long-term meditators when they're in that meditative state. So you release those same like brain waves.
That's really interesting. It sounds like what you were saying before about taking away distraction. Yeah, because it forces a taking away of distraction out. So not only like it's not really, it takes, I don't know. It's interesting because it takes the discipline element out of it, which is, I wonder what that effect is.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because it's almost made me like more lazy to meditate.
Sounds like commodifying it.
Yeah, because you don't have to do anything in there. You don't have to think about anything.
It's not.
Whereas meditation is like you're actually focusing on something, you're paying attention to something, and it's difficult.
And there's a learning curve too.
Yeah, and I would say like being in a float tank a couple times, it's gonna be a different experience, and you're gonna get into that float state faster every time you go into a tank.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So there is like a type of learning curve, I want to say, but maybe not the same as a meditation learning curve, but yeah.
You got. It sounds like both of you think is like kind of cheating.
Cheating?
Yeah, like.
It does circumvent a certain process. I'm not saying it's cheating. I think getting to a point of self-awareness and connection to the body is really important, and a lot of people don't have that, and I think this gets people to a point where they can reconnect with themselves and like examine their own, acknowledge their own consciousness in a way. I think that's amazing.
Wait, you think floating is cheating? Like,
no, it's just
cheating
it sounds like you guys
cheating
like
into getting into that self-awareness easily. I don't think it would be cheating. Some people can't meditate. They can't sit down and be like, okay, I'm gonna sit here for 10 minutes and meditate. Like, people get bored. They don't want to meditate. That's not saying people they can't, like they physically can't.
But I think that's the process of meditation.
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
Being bored is where creativity comes from.
Definitely agree with that. But some people just don't want to sit down and do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so floating can be a way to get there.
Some people suck. I'm just kidding. But no, I don't like.
Don't put words in my mouth.
I'm not. Those are my words. No, I'm very curious because it feels like everyone has a much shorter attention span, and if it's like, oh my god, 8-minute YouTube video, fuck you, I'm not gonna watch this.
Yeah,
you know
or like
I mean?
that little circle that's loading the video. People are like, all right, I'm done.
Yeah. And it's just
2 seconds.
Okay, so I can see the utility of like flow therapy being a kind of a shortcut, and that definitely does help people in the long run because obviously they become more self-aware.
More theta waves.
Yeah, more theta waves. Like
Can
it's
we talk
good
more
for your
about
brain.
that? What is a theta wave, and what is the effect on the brain, and what is the effect on the body?
I can't. I don't know enough about that. That's just something I read in the paper.
But that's so interesting because if that's like a chemical response that happens over years of identifying with the self and like using the consciousness in a way, that's literal physical. That's a bridge between this metaphysical truth that we're talking about of consciousness and the physical realm of truth.
Almost. It's okay, so the waves themselves are just electrical signals that you can pick up on like the cranium of the rat or person or whatever, right?
Right.
I'm not 100% sure if I'm right on this. It's been a while since I've done neuroscience.
I shouldn't say this, but like I work with EEGs, so I should know more about this.
You should know this. You literally got it.
That's like my job.
No, but theta waves are like correlated with sleep, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So, because I remember there's definitely been times when...
Yeah, so you have delta and theta waves when you're sleeping.
Which is interesting because that's when dreams happen.
When you're in REM sleep. So REM is
Yeah, you know, the levels
rapid eye
sleep 2,
movements,
3, 4, whatever.
That's
yeah.
when you dream and when you have your most vivid dreams and stuff.
So do you feel, and it sounds like you said you were conscious when you're...
But yeah, so that's the difference.
Mm-hmm.
So like when you're in this state, you're aware of it, which is super cool.
Have you,
So some people, sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. But
no, have you ever been hypnotized? Because
I have never been hypnotized, but I think that would be a really cool
it sounds
experience.
similar, right?
Also sounds like lucid dreaming.
I've also had a lucid dream before, and they are amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, I know
Like,
a few people who would disagree with that.
Well, yeah, they can be super scary experiences.
Yeah.
But, anyways, so in the float tank, some people have like visual hallucinations, which is normal. It can happen because, like we were talking about earlier, this is normally like a sleep state that you would be in. So, recently this one guy came out of his tank, and we have this thing where we're like, okay, so how do you feel? Like, we don't ask them how their float was, we ask them how they're feeling. And most of the time people are like, oh, I feel so great, I feel relaxed. Some people are like, I don't even know how I feel right now, like, because they're at this like such a like neutral state. But this one guy came out and he goes, yeah, I feel great. I was like, at one point I started seeing a lot of colors, and I was like, what? That's so cool. Like, I'm like nerding out. He was like, yeah, I have synesthesia.
Yes.
And I've had it for my whole life.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my God, you're an amazing person. Can you tell me more about this? And he was like, basically when I hear sounds, I see colors. And he said, like, it only really happens when they're pure sounds, or like when I'm like really into the sound. So like he mentioned this one band that he listens to, and he was like, whenever I listen to their music, I see like blue and pink and stuff. And then he mentioned like Muse. He listens to a couple of Muse songs, and he sees colors, and I thought that was so cool. But yes, so some people hallucinate when they're in there.
Yeah, some, like, they don't necessarily have to be like synthetic or anything. Like,
No, they
yeah.
don't have to necessarily.
Like, you can, there's a possibility that you can get, but it's...
I think you will. You have a pretty active imagination.
Oh yeah, that's why I'm very excited. And you already even said like, no, do the 90 minutes, don't do the 60 minutes. Like, really,
Yeah,
like,
and some people do doubles and triples, so they're in there for
Put
like
me back
3 to
in.
5 hours.
Amp it up.
Yeah.
yeah.
Turn it up,
Oh,
baby.
that's me.
Full chaos. Expert mode.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
No, but that's interesting because I don't remember if the last time we talked, if I had mentioned I'm getting into like dream analysis and that kind of stuff.
No, that's awesome.
Okay, because like
I'm jealous.
no, but like you know
Wait,
how I just started reading Jung instead of Freud because you know like we kind of brush over
like
Jung.
with your career.
Oh no, not with my career, just
Just
life.
like your interest. Okay.
Yeah, because like I've had recurring nightmares before, and they don't resolve themselves until I make like some kind of substantial change in my life, and then I'm like, oh, okay,
That's
yeah,
cool
that makes sense.
that you've realized that.
Oh, yeah.
That's a big step into.
Yeah, except there's still some like weird stuff floating around that I'm like, that's a really important detail, and I don't know what that is, and it's like, oh, okay, whatever. But I mean, I don't have those recurring nightmares anymore, so I'm all loosey
What do you
goosey.
mean things floating around? Like while you're sleeping, or when you're awake at night?
Like when I'm sleeping, like there'll be a crazy detail where it's just like I'll understand everything inside the story except for like a weird looking lamp, and I'll be like, it's important that I notice that, but I don't know why that lamp is so weird. What is it representative of? I don't understand. Or it'll just be like weird stuff, like
Some undecoded subconscious.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
It's hard to truly decode all of your
Yeah.
subconscious.
it might be just some like gobbledygook that I just saw during the day. Maybe I just
Yeah.
passed to Chili's and then like I see the pepper in my dream or something. You know, it's
Yeah, well, they say
Sponsor
you
me.
It's
can't.
also a way of processing information from the day, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
without a doubt.
definitely. And they say you can't like create faces in your dreams. Like you have to at least,
Have seen,
Have
seen it
before,
somewhere
yeah.
in your life.
if
I've heard
not
too.
that person, but like,
Some stranger you passed on the street, you've had to have seen it.
yeah, or like you can kind of like mix features in a person.
Mhm.
So like if you've seen somebody's eyes and they were like really striking to you, you can put that on an image or something like. Or, I don't know. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's difficult to, it's like, because think about the complexity of that, to like auto-generate something completely random that you've never seen before. You're gonna borrow bits and pieces because your brain just has to simplify the world down to like, oh, this is like Gianna's eyes on like Stefan's face.
You
on
dreaming about my eyes?
What? Oh, yeah. Lovely. But okay, so I got detracted. What I was trying to say was that in Jung's book, he had mentioned that like we often see dreams as like the unconscious suddenly rising up and taking over because our consciousness is asleep, but it's more accurate that he thought that we were always dreaming, and that when you're conscious, it negates it and you're unaware of it, which is what by definition makes it unconscious.
Well, that's cool.
So it's kind of like when you're in the tank, it's like your consciousness can kind of take a back seat, and all the weird stuff you see it sounds synonymous to dreams and the subconscious, like communicating with.
Yeah, I don't want you to have so many expectations going.
No, I won't. I'm very much excited to just see, because you've definitely explained that it was difficult to get settled.
Yeah.
And I mean that's something I want to get better at, because whether I'm in the tank or whether I'm.
Yeah, but just like anything, it comes with practice.
Yeah, don't have too many expectations, because it's. I don't know, I guess that's kind of just a life lesson, though. You can't really have your story written and just be like, I'm going to follow this story and make zero change.
It's the story of my life.
Oh, yike.
There's an element of chaos, man.
Okay, so what's interesting to me is that you gravitate towards Sam Harris, because he
I don't
is
gravitate
very
towards him.
biologically based.
My brother had mentioned his podcast.
He's brilliant.
He's so smart, and he's into meditation. He's like he's into neuroscience and like all this stuff. And he brings up really good points, and I find him interesting to listen to.
Okay, so then, and this is the conversation that we ended with last time, but do you think that truth is grounded in the objective world, or do you think it's
Here we go.
subjective? Because
do I think truth? Can you repeat that question?
what do you think truth is nested in, grounded in, or even how would you define truth?
Oh, come on, man. That's a really hard
I know,
question
but
to
like we
answer.
were kind of talking about
Okay,
it.
so we were talking about this. I said that truth is relative.
Uh-huh.
I would
And
agree with that.
I say that because for each person, or I like don't even know how to even start this, but I'll give an example. So our memories are like very unreliable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's been known. We can fabricate things. We can think something has happened to us in the past when really it hasn't. Or we can remember this event and really 100% believe that this thing happened when it didn't. Or you can remember, oh, she was wearing a yellow dress and I vividly remember that yellow dress, but really she was wearing a blue dress. Or something like that. It could be as little as that. It could be as big as like a whole event that you're making up that you think that happened. And if you're telling this to somebody, you are 100% believing that this is a true story. That is your truth. And that's why I say it's relative, because something that's true to one person might not be true to another person. So say like both of those people were at that same event, and one person was like, she was wearing a yellow dress, and that other person was like, nope, that was definitely a blue dress. To both of them, that's a true statement. But to the person that they're telling it to, it's a different statement, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're two different statements, but both of those people think that it's true. So I think that in that respect, truth is relative.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't have to be as simple as that. It can be like a lot more complex.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, because eventually you get into the territory of whose truth is the greater truth and gets held accountable because if they're two conflicting truths,
Sure.
then like from a, shall we say, legal standpoint, oftentimes one must be true and the other must be false. Which is hard.
Right. And then you can get into that whole question of religion, whereas one religion believes, if you look at Catholicism, God is that ultimate power, that highest power. But then you look at another religion and they believe something different, but their belief is their truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's two different sides, and like people are saying different things, and what one person is saying is true, the other person saying something else is true, and your truth is not true.
I think it's very important to encounter others' truths and have them grapple with our own. I think that's really beautiful, and one of the like things I strive for most of my life is to test my idea, constantly be like testing and stretching my idea of like what is familiar and what is true.
Yeah.
I just did air quotes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, some people think that there are universal truths as well, which are true to everyone, right?
Yeah.
But you know, I don't even know. I don't even know if that's true. Like, what would you say is a universal truth?
Life is hard.
Yeah.
Life throws things at you that are
But
unexpected.
that statement is super subjective.
Find me someone who says life is easy.
Well,
Like,
in the moment, life can
so-
be easy.
Yeah.
But overall, something's gonna give.
yeah, like suffering and pain and tragedy are
Death and taxes, right?
There,
Like,
yeah.
there are some things that are death,
For
right?
sure.
War. Like, and hopefully
death-
there's an end.
death-
yeah,
But,
well,
But hold up.
like a good end.
But
Like
death is not always a bad thing for people. Some people
No, I'm not saying it's a
celebrate
bad thing.
death.
I'm saying it's exactly.
No, but
I'm
it's the
saying
truth.
It's finite.
Yeah.
It's truth.
Oh, but some people don't think that that's finite. Some people don't believe in death. Some people don't think that they're going to die, that death is a
Sure,
thing.
exactly. But
So how can that be universal if there are people that don't believe it?
Well, I guess. Okay, death, as in, it depends on what we're defining as death. A moral decomposition of the physical form, and that
Sure, science
And-
will say that that's true,
yeah.
that that's going to happen. But there are people that still,
believe that the soul passes on after death.
no, even
or that
even
the body is
the
reincarnated
physical
into
aspect
the-
of death, and them not believing in that, that's their truth, right?
Yeah. No, I understand.
Yes. Do you think
And
there's
you
such
can
a
call
thing
them crazy
as?
because you can.
I'm not calling it crazy.
No,
I'm
but I know you're not calling them crazy, but you can say, well, that you're wrong, right? You're wrong because this is actually happening. I'm not saying you're saying that personally. I'm saying like in general, a person can say, well, you're wrong. Like, this is actually happening. Don't you see that this is happening right now? Death is happening around you. This body is decomposing in front of you. This person just died. But if that other person says, no, you can't convince me that this is true, because they just don't believe it, and that's not their truth.
So my question for you would be: do you think that people that should always continue on believing their truth, or try to test their idea of truth with the world, with the greater world at large, which will throw new things at you that there will always be things on the margin of your understanding that your current mode of thinking can't quite categorize because it's new, it's unknown, because
Sure.
the universe is full of impossibility of potential. And I guess my question would be: do you think it's better to continue on believing what you currently understand and making the unknown fit what you know, or stretching your possibility for the known? That was a very loaded question.
Personally,
Yeah.
I would want to understand more. I think personally I'm a very open person, and I'm not a very judgmental person.
Thank God. We wouldn't be friends. I'm just kidding.
So I'm very open to other people's ideas and their opinions and what they believe is true, and I think that it's interesting. So personally, I would want to understand more of where they're coming from and why they believe in certain things, and what they see as true. But I can't say that for everybody else. I can't say that another person's gonna, want to open up their mind to other truths.
I think that's absolutely true. I think.
But I
there's
do
lot
think
of
it's a
people
good
who
thing.
can't.
Right, but I do think it's a good thing. Was that your question?
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is very abstract things that we're trying to like say, and we're it almost sounds like we're pitching truth as just subjective experience.
Yes, but I do think that there's a difference between truth and fact.
Ooh. What is fact? How do you distinguish the two?
That's a really good question. I don't know, because I guess facts are man-made, right?
Man interpreted.
But that's the same as truth.
Yeah.
I mean,
But that's not saying that all truth is fact, right?
yeah.
Or all facts are true. Or are all facts true?
This is going to become like a definitions game,
This
right?
is becoming absurdism. This is becoming like Samuel
Yeah, but
Beckett.
I don't know. To answer your question, I don't know. I don't know what the difference is, but I believe that there is a difference between truth and fact.
Okay. I mean,
And one might be the other, but I don't know. That kind of gets hard, and I know I brought that subject up, but that gets hard to talk about.
no, but that's
Because
interesting.
I don't fully understand it.
No, but that's good because
Yeah,
like
that's what we're doing.
you definitely feel it and you believe it to be true, even if you can't explain it, right?
It's my truth.
Yeah. No, that's everyone's truth. I think if you ask enough questions, like if you keep asking yourself why, you eventually get to something that you're like, shit, I don't know.
Yeah. It's
why
cool
is
to
this
think about, though.
No, but that's good. That's literally like self-awareness and like being able to like push out in your bubble and find out where all the corners and edges are of your perspective and what you see. How it sounds like we're using the definition of truth is kind of like a vehicle that you follow to have a good life, right? Like you even said that when you're open-minded and you very much are willing to accept other people's truths, because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you acknowledge you could be wrong.
Yeah.
Right? And maybe someone else's
definitely.
subjective truth is a better way of living.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be. That's not saying that the way that I'm living right now is
Not good. No.
good.
It's-
But I think acceptance is a huge topic that people need to understand. Accepting where you are and what your thoughts are is very important in life. And if you can't accept it, if you can't fight, or if you do fight it and you can't accept like who you are as a person and what you do, then it's like it's kind of hard to live in this world.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that is a huge internal struggle that people deal with every day, and it's just like you have to just be okay with where you are, and you have to be okay that things are going to be changing, and this is kind of getting into a whole new topic.
No, go for it.
But like you have to understand that like life is always changing. And if you fight that change and you kind of like fight where your place is in life and where you're at, then things are just not going to work.
Yeah. No, 100% agree. Right? Life is hard. Life is...
It's not just saying, it's not just like life is hard.
No,
It's like,
I don't mean to diminish it. I'm just saying that that's like probably the most bare statement that I think pretty much everyone can agree, that there's adversity in life. You can't exist in life as like a true neutral,
Yes.
non-participating, non-feeling entity.
You'll run into something that is outside of your capacity for like what is normal, what is known, what is easy, what is right, like what is accepted, and so I think at least being aware or like noticing the things that you're doing in your daily life and being able to incorporate the useful parts and like, I don't know, I guess not everyone. I think the difference that I've been kind of encountering recently is I think it's very important for me to like recognize things that aren't working for myself and try to leave those behind and move towards the things that are a more positive version of myself. Whereas I know a lot of people are encouraging the idea of total self-acceptance and like giving yourself whatever you need in the moment.
Yeah, but you're accepting the fact that you need to drop those things behind. So you're accepting that, and you're accepting the fact that you have to move forward.
Yes.
And try new things.
Yeah, that there are like potential versions of selves.
Sure.
And to like aim for the one that is, you know, the most, whatever you think might be the most healthy, like successful, fully enveloped, fully incarnate, fully like present and full potential version of yourself.
Yeah.
To aim to that, and like there's another direction to aim, right?
Yeah.
And
I don't want it to get confused like what I said earlier when I said like just accept where you are. I don't want it to seem like I'm saying, okay, well, you are where you are, so you're just gonna have to accept it and stop trying. Like I don't want it to seem like that.
Yeah, I understood that. But it's important you make that clarification because people definitely do misinterpret. Yeah.
Yeah. So you just want to like kind of like be okay with things that you're noticing that you have to let go and say, okay, this is where I'm at right now. This is where I want to go, and I'm gonna accept that process. I'm gonna accept that journey to get there.
Yeah, voluntarily.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, that's been our like main mission statement of the year.
Take the journey.
It's all about the journey. It's
the
not
journey
about
inward,
the end.
so you can take the journey outward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's
journey within, journey without.
That's a very good distinction, that you should aim for what you could be more than what you are right now, right? Because like you said, the world changes, and unless you can continuously go through that, let's say death and rebirth, you're not really going to fit in, and it's like no one can.
You're just making it hard for yourself.
Yeah, the world is just way too complex and dynamic for you to not like not like this is just to tie it in, just to tip it, but like what kind of neuroscience did you like gravitate towards? Because I loved cognitive, and computational was my nightmare. I cannot handle that at
That's
all.
Funny.
No, why is that funny?
It's funny because when I first started neuroscience, I was just super interested in the introductory class, and I was like, whoa, all this stuff is so cool, because you can relate to it, because it's like everybody has a brain.
You don't know that.
Well, you're right.
What if I don't believe I have brains? You're
right, though. That's my truth. And then I started kind of gravitating towards computational, because I was like, ooh, numbers, cool. I was like, computers, AI, whoa. But then I read that book on phantom pregnancy. It wasn't on phantom pregnancy, but the chapter. Yeah. And I got into meditation, and then I took a intro to Eastern religion course my senior year, because I needed to be full-time, and I only I only needed like 2 classes to graduate, but I didn't want to be a part-time student because I wanted all the benefits of a full-time student. So I took extra classes that I didn't used to take. So I took an Eastern religion class, and we learned about like Buddhism and Hinduism and Taoism and all that stuff. And one of the TAs in the class was like, why are you taking this course? And she was asking all the kids in the class, and they were like, oh, I'm just fulfilling my humanities requirement. And then she came to me, and I was like, oh, I'm actually really interested in meditation, where it came from, and its effects on the brain. And she goes, whoa, that's really cool. Like,
I love that.
Cool. And that's when I really started to understand its origins and why people started to meditate, and the different reasons why people do it,
Mm-hmm.
which I found out to be really cool.
Can you give us some examples? I don't know any, like, reasons for...
Yeah, so
Historically accurate reason for
Yeah.
meditation.
do you want to hear the story of the Buddha? I can give you like a very
Spark Notes?
yeah.
Go for it.
I can try to at least. So there was this like really rich king, and he had a son, and he wanted his son to have everything in the world. Like he would give him all the riches, everything that he wanted, but he didn't want his son to see the world outside of their castle because he knew that it was filled with poverty and sick people, and he was like, I don't want my son to be exposed to that.
The world is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard.
And so the king basically built walls around his castle. He never let his son out, but he gave his son everything that he wanted because he thought that was the best for his son. And the son eventually grew up, and he was like, he wasn't fulfilled. He had everything that he could have asked for, everything that he could have wanted, and he just wasn't fulfilled. And he asked one of his guards or whatever to take him out, to sneak him out of the castle grounds. And he went out for a night, and he saw sickness, he saw poverty, he saw like everything in the world that he was not exposed to. And he decided to leave the castle and live out in the world. And for years he was living on the street. He was he was starving, he was sick, he almost died, and he still didn't feel fulfilled. He was like, this isn't what I want either. And so he sat down, like the story goes that he sat down underneath a tree for 40 days and thought about it. And he came to the conclusion that all life is suffering, and everything in life is always changing and impermanent. And coming to that conclusion and accepting that fact and kind of just believing in that. And I don't really like know, I don't know, but knowing that he came to that conclusion, and that's kind of like how Buddhism started, and that is kind of how meditation started. Is he meditated underneath that tree for 40 days, and he came to the conclusion that this is what it is. And like everything that we have, everything that's material in this world is just always changing, and there's really like no need for it, because it's just
Ever fleeting. That's a deep principle.
Yeah.
And
that's like the
mortality of things.
Sure, yeah.
Death and taxes. That is a really like that's a
archetypically
hero's journey.
Yeah.
That's like, and also there's something about that, like there's something of significance about that 40 days, because that is that understanding of knowledge that it took 40 days to achieve is present in so many different religions. Like isn't
like when Jesus went into the desert for
Yep.
40 days.
Well, 40 days were nice.
Yeah, exactly.
That comes up over and over again.
I think the Israelites wandered the desert for 40 days as well.
I thought it was 40.
Or maybe it was 40 years.
Years
I
sounds
may
more
be
accurate.
misciting my Torah.
I'm not that knowledgeable. It's interesting the number 40, because I don't know how true this is, but when I took AP Psych way back when in high school, and you know how like baby that is, my teacher said that like to get over get over like a high school boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, would be like a month and a half, which is about 40 days. So I think I don't know, it feels like to me that 40 kind of seems like a magic number when Like that's the minimum threshold for significant psychological change or transformation.
Yeah, it could be. They do say that it does take 66 days to like.
How dare you? I'm just kidding.
To form a habit. So I don't know about the number 40. But when I read that story, I was confused because I was like, how could a religion or way of thinking be based on suffering?
Oh,
And
every
I was
religion
like,
is based on suffering.
No,
Yeah.
I know. I guess I shouldn't phrase it that way, but it's like,
I think it's right.
no, because I think some religions are like, this is the answer to all of your questions, you know?
But in a really abstract way.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really
I guess
difficult.
I guess it depends on the interpretation. There are some who would say this is
Yeah.
a factual answer because it's written here, and there are some who would say, well, it's a symbol that meant something to these people, and it means something different because of it's the way they thought.
Yeah.
They thought in images, or they thought in
Really low resolution ideas.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but I guess my confusion was like, suffering is the way to fulfill your life.
No, I don't think that's right, and I think that's in the story. Because he leaves.
But hang on. So I was confused by this.
Okay.
And then I read a book on Kriya Yoga, and they explained
Wait, I'm sorry, what is it?
Kriya Yoga.
How do you spell that?
Kriya.
EYA, IYA.
Whatever. Google it, folks.
Kriya Yoga. And they explained there's like the smallest chapter of the book, and they explained that if we didn't have suffering in the world, if everything was peachy, we wouldn't strive for anything more.
Absolutely, you
Yeah.
need adversity. That's what we were talking
Right.
about. You need to have to face something to learn something.
Right, and accepting that life is suffering and that everything is changing helps you progress in life and get to that final stage, which some people call nirvana, some people call heaven, some people,
Integrated.
Yeah. It's very
which
similar.
I think is, like, I never really thought of it like that before.
But like this is so Josh and I have been getting so into like the concept of a story, what makes a good story, what makes a good journey, and it's like the theme of
Narrative.
of
Anxiety, stress, fear, anger.
yeah. No.
No, you need that.
Well,
if you don't
for-
have that, you're never gonna learn.
Okay.
You're never gonna move forward. And accepting that fact gets you there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree with the accepting. I agree that it has to be voluntary because I don't. This is
You don't think you need anxiety and fear?
no. I will explain it. Okay. There's two things going on right now. Really quick. I don't think that because I'm suffering, because I'm anxious, and because I'm depressed, somehow my life is gonna somehow like fix itself.
Yeah. I don't-
Right? Because
Sure.
there is such thing as
I get
meaningless suffering, and I think that's what Buddha discovered when he went out and he was starving and sick, and he's like, "Geez,
It's not the end.
I'm living the other side of like I'm spiraling, right? I'm going down to like depths of hell, and there's still no like meaning here. There's nothing like carrying my life." And it wasn't until he meditated, self-actualized, and was able to transform himself in a way that obviously helped countless people, right? And it's not until like he was able to, like you said, Josh, orient himself towards his fullest potential, towards that like that like wishing upon a star, that highest ideal, that he was able to get a meaningful life. So I think meaning, like there's a very big difference between meaningless suffering, which is just like, whoa, you get cancer, or your mom gets hit by a truck, or something. You know what I mean? Like that's just, ugh.
I know what you mean, but you only understand that it's meaningless after. Like, you can't tell that it's meaningless suffering in the moment. Because suffering in that moment it's there, and you're suffering for a reason.
I would say, talking about this idea of subjective truth, I would say that there are definitely people, and I've experienced this, where it feels like the suffering that you're experiencing is just coming out of left field and chaos, and like, how am I supposed to draw anything away from this? But then ultimately, like, I think that idea of having the goal, having like the direction, is what, I mean, this is finding a reason, choosing to identify a reason for life suffering, finding a goal, finding a meaning, having an aim. Is that like life is this series of like terrible things that are going to happen, and trying to move past them, that's where that helps. But I would say that I think it is possible to feel like suffering is, I don't think meaningless, I wouldn't take meaningless to mean less than. I would say it seems uncalled for, almost like uncorrelated.
But I think that every feeling that we have has a meaning to it. I don't think I agree with meaningless suffering. I think that all suffering has a meaning to it, and that you learn something from every moment that you suffer.
I agree.
Okay, yeah. I think,
or you can learn
yeah,
something.
you can. I think it's a mentality, and it's
I agree.
definitely a very healthy mentality, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that there is meaningless suffering.
I think
It might seem meaningless. Like, it might seem like why the fuck am I worrying about this right now? You know, this is pointless. This isn't helping me in any way. And that might seem like it in the moment. And then later on you might say, I only came to this conclusion right now because of that time that I felt that anxiety about that moment. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think that's one of the miracles of consciousness, is that we can...
And that's what progress is. And
Yeah.
that's why we have suffering.
Sure. For sure. I also think it's very interesting that, and this is just something that like came to light to me very recently, because I'm just reading a bunch of weird stuff and watching a bunch of weird stuff. But
Great stuff.
is that we've been talking a lot about aiming towards that potential, right? And basically like absorbing the world, good and bad, and then through a series of like, you know, birth and death and rebirth, being able to transform ourselves to grow closer towards that aim.
Nirvana, right?
Yeah. One of the...
Air quotes.
Yeah. Thanks.
One of the original definitions of true is to hit the mark, or truth is to hit the mark, and that's
What language is that?
English. It's indicative.
Oh, strike true.
Yeah, exactly. The arrow strikes true means it hits the mark. And interestingly enough, in religion, to sin means to miss the mark.
But that's still subjective. Hitting the mark is subjective.
Yeah, it's subjective, but I'm saying that it's interesting that we've been talking
Or
about like...
relative.
Yeah, it's
rooted in that idea.
Okay, so we're not... Okay.
We're not disagreeing. I'm just saying it's interesting because the idea of truth is
yeah.
actually a lot more vague
Sure.
than we think.
It encompasses a lot.
Oh, definitely.
And I think
yeah.
that's why we treat the word truth and we treat the word fact as different things. Because at least this is how I interpret. Like, fact sounds sciencey, like stuff that we can all agree on objectively. If I mix this chemical with this chemical, boom, I get this. But true is more
A
subjective.
result you can record,
Yeah,
right? That's what I think of.
can
It's
record
like
and like in any science,
assign
like repeat.
numerical value, but I mean, yeah.
But I think truth is a lot better than fact, because I don't think facts can necessarily tell you how to live a true life, if that makes sense, which is where I disagree with Sam Harris. Because I don't think you can get meaning from a series of infinite facts. Because
Does he say that?
Yes, he supposes that if you understand a certain scenario completely and you have all the infinite facts, you'll know what to do.
That brings up an interesting point. Another chapter in the Phantoms of the Brain book talks about a word called, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but it's called qualia. Qualia. And I think this has something to do with what you were talking about. But basically, if there was an alien that had no idea about our planet and came to our planet and we tried to teach it love and we gave all the facts about love.
Whoa.
We basically defined love for that alien, and we were like, this is all you need to know about love. These are all the facts. we basically like hooked up the internet to this alien and was like, hey,
Here it
this is all you need to know about love. But he couldn't feel it. He couldn't experience love for himself. All he knew was the facts about love and everything about love. But he didn't experience it for himself. And so therefore he couldn't know love. Right?
Yeah. No, I think
that's what qualia is. It's basically like your experience.
yes. Okay, that's exactly what I was. Yes, I was waiting for because it's. I think that's the distinction between why people want. You ideally want to be surrounded by people who are empathetic, not sympathetic. Because if you're empathetic, they feel the same things you feel, and there's like that human element of like, you get me. Versus sympathetic is like, here's all the facts, here's the definition of love. I can recite to you like all the sonnets and stuff that Shakespeare ever wrote, but it's not the same.
It's not rooted in the like human response to it, right? Like I guess primal. It's the body bit.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah. And
feeling is feeling, right? Feeling is like touch.
But
feeling
it's
is also.
But it's your feeling.
Yeah.
And you can't describe that to somebody else because they don't. You can
You
describe
try.
it. Okay, you can
And then
describe it.
an
I can't
active
say that.
imagination will go to experiences that
But
I've
they
had that
will
have
never
reminded me of
know.
that.
They will never know what you
Truly
felt.
know what you felt. Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
will never know what color,
You can
how
say,
you see blue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that. You can say that painting that painting is green to me. Okay.
that painting is haunted.
Okay. Don't tell me that. But like you can't say, oh, you can't experience that green that I'm experiencing.
There's been a few papers that say that we experience green the same way, but I don't know how they prove it. I'm agreeing with you. I just think it's a really
I can explain it in a way that okay, it's green, and you're the same neuron in my brain might be lighting up in your brain saying, okay, yeah, that's green, that's your green neuron, you know.
Yeah.
But there is no way for you to experience that color that I'm seeing.
Yeah.
And I think that's the
In your
thing.
mind.
That's kind of the thing that turned me off of neuroscience, is that I was always looking for that connection with the abstract subconscious, and we'd have nothing to go on except for like, oh, it shares similar theta waves, and that's all the best we know, and the electrical, this part lights up and this part lights up, so I guess it's kind of, but it's still very like, I don't know, yes, but also like it's very
But also
yeah,
no.
it's not even close to like the complexity of like human experience.
Yeah. And I think that's seen a lot in the arts, in that like
Yes.
different people will draw very different things away from the same painting. And that just because you are seeing the same colors in the same physical format, your experience and where you meet the painting, or where you meet, I mean, this applies to everything, but I think a painting is really a metaphor, affects what it is, what it means,
Sure.
and like how it affects your life.
And I like to kind of bring this full circle. When you asked me what I wanted to do, I want to make people feel good about themselves and release that full potential so that they can have these experiences and have these experiences affect them in the best maximal way possible. But that's something that's very personal, and that's something that differs from each person. And yeah, and that's our own truth in a way.